Hey, what's up, Mean Green Nation? It's Greg from meangreennation.com, analyst, blogger, podcaster extraordinaire, bringing you today's daily breakdown topic. During the week, we're going to try and take some time out to break down a daily topic that's, happening in the world of UNT athletics. And today, the topic is wide receivers and whether or not we should be panicking at this time period, or whether we feel good about the situation we have going into next fall. So basically, I know a lot of you guys follow the sport closely. You follow what's been happening. You saw the DWI, Turner Smiley, suspension. Obviously, he's going to be out for one game against SMU. That hurts. Now news comes down yesterday, and maybe it's late news, maybe it happened later on and it just got published, but either way, spring starter Rodney Bendy, big time, not really big time, but a big wide receiver that had what I would say a lot of potential. He had, great size. The skill set was coming along. There was a lot of hype from him in the spring game. A lot of people thought that the new offense was going to be one that really benefited him. He was going to be a guy that could step up next fall. He was going to be a guy, and I shouldn't really say next fall, I should say this fall. He was going to be a guy that was going to make plays for us. That's what it comes down to. So we've lost Bendy. We got Turner Smiley out for the first game. And we really, the position of wide receiver in this offense, it's one where you like to have guys that can make plays on the outside, because this offense is going to give them the opportunity to make plays. We know, or we believe, that T. Goree obviously is number one. He's the number one go-to guy. Everybody, I think if you talk to most UNT fans, they feel like that's the guy coming out of the spring, going into the fall, that they will rely upon him to be the man of the offense. When you talk about trios, you have Alex Morris quarterback, Jeffrey Wilson running back, T. Goree wide receiver, extraordinaire. He came out of Carthage. He didn't really fit well in what Dan McCarney and Coach Canales, Chico, what they were trying to do. The offense it didn't work well for him. And comes Seth Luttrell, Graham Harrell, Filani, wide receiver coach, and boom, we think we have an offense that suits his skill set and will make him even better than what we thought he was already going to be. So, okay, there's T. Goree. Then you go down the list and, okay, well, who do you turn to? Who's the number two guy? I mean, for me, it was Turner Smiley. Turner Smiley's out against SMU. Okay, so then who exactly do you go to? Well, Kelvin Smith, tight end, inside wide receiver, whatever you want to call him, he had a great spring game, but is that a fluke type of thing? We've seen it before with certain players all over the country, not just at North Texas, that they have the great springs, it doesn't transition to the fall, they don't make much of an impact on the field. This guy had a really good spring, had a great spring game, and I think a lot of people are counting on him to be maybe even the number two wide receiver in the offense. I know every year I do projections for Mean Green Nation. Last year, we came close on, a bunch of guys like Carlos Harris. We were, I think, like one or two catches off what he was going to have for the year. This year, going down the list of wide receivers and who I think is going to catch balls, because we're going to throw a lot of passes. Let's get that straight. We're going to throw close to or over 400 passes this year. And it may end up even being more, but, I have it, right around 400. Okay, well, somebody's going to have to make catches. T. Goree, I know this is a lot, and it's a big bump from what he had last year, but 60 to 80 catches. That's what I'm saying. Right now, somewhere in the 70 range, I'd feel very comfortable with. Okay, number two, based upon what he did in the spring, Kelvin Smith. I think he's a guy 50 to 60 catches in this offense. They targeted him a lot over the middle, whether that was the UNT linebackers or coverage breakdowns. That could have been the case. Either way, I think he's going to be a guy that gets a lot of looks. Third, right now, Turner Smiley. I think he's a guy, 40 to 50 range again. Okay, but then after those three, and even really after the first two, because Turner Smiley missed most of the spring with an injury. He didn't have a spring game. Now you have the DWI, the suspension popped up. You don't know how that's going to affect him in the fall. I don't think that he's a bad kid, and I don't think he makes horrible decisions off the field. This could be a one-time thing. Latrell, I think they'll handle it. It's fine. We'll move on. He'll be back for the second game. But still, who then becomes that fourth guy in the rotation? Who's the fourth best guy? Beforehand, you could have said it was Bendy. You could have said he was almost the third guy. He was a guy that I had pegged for 40 receptions. So then where do you turn to? And where is a guy on the roster that you pick? Thaddeus Thompson. I think he was kind of overlooked in the spring. I think he had some flashes last year. With JUCO transfer guys, normally takes 1 year to kind of get acclimated to the next level, and then the following year, then they jump into it. Okay, so this is the second year. He's got the tools and the talent to be a good wide receiver in this offense. So he's a guy right now that I had pegged for 36 catches, and I think he's your number 3 guy on the list. I think after you get past him, Rutherford and Thompson are the guys that benefit the most from the departure of Bendy. And obviously the freshman guys, which we'll get into a little bit. But Rutherford was, he came in with T. Gorey, and a lot was expected of the Carthage boys. They didn't have the great first 2 years. We know the offense of issues, the play calling issues. We know the quarterback issues that they faced. Horrendous conditions. Either way, they still didn't produce themselves. It's a big year for both Gorey and Rutherford. We need Rutherford 6'5", 190. You'd like to have that as an outside wide receiver, red zone target, any way he can contribute. But still, we need another outside wide receiver, somebody to complement Gorey on the other side. Rutherford, Thompson, those two guys, that we need big falls from them. They have to really produce in this offense. They have to be key contributors. We can't have everybody ganging up on Gorey. Once you get past those guys, then you have the inside spot, which the spring depth chart, had Connor Davis, and you have Kenny Byers. God love Kenny Byers. 2013, one of the greatest seasons you've seen from a man. As far just his ability to be, what's the word we're looking for here? The way that his fundamentals were off the chain as a defensive back. He had a rough 2014. Last year he had the injury. This year you have the new coach. Starts out as a DB, moves over to wide receiver when the depth becomes a concern. And so now, can he make the transition? Can he be a player that makes contributions on the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver? I have my doubts about it. I'm not sure that, I know he could probably play the position, but make a contribution, I don't know. I think some of the other guys that are coming in out of the freshman group, Tyler Wilson from Arlington Martin, Rico Busey out of Oklahoma, and Dion Hare Griffin, the speedster out of Arlington Heights. Those 3 guys, I like them. They all kind of bring a little bit something different. Busey's one of those guys who could get into that competition probably as an outside wide receiver, whereas Hare Griffin, Tyler Wilson, those guys, I think their explosiveness is better than a Connor Davis or Kenny Byers at that inside wide receiver position. Kind of the type of guy that, they have more wiggle to them. They can explode in and out of cuts, separation. I think at that inside spot, you want to have good separation in this offense. So can they pick up on the route tree? Can they, get through the battles of a college camp? Can they get adjusted to the game in time to be able to start at SMU? I don't know. I certainly think that all three of those guys, at least two of those out of that three will be listed on the 2 deep when we go into SMU, because there's not that many spots. There's not that many people on the roster that I think could fill those spots in the 2 deep, because we're going to have 4 wide receivers, so you're talking 8 deep. Okay, so you're looking at who are the 8 best wide receivers on this team. Well, it's hard to find that without, looking at the freshmen, the true freshmen coming in. And then you have the JUCO transfer who's not on campus yet, hasn't been added to the roster. You're hoping that all goes well, qualifies. Quentin Jackson, he was a wide receiver with Devin O'Hara, and, he has the good length. He has the speed. He's probably one of those guys that you'd fit on the outside, again in that battle with Thaddeus Thompson and O'Kurian Rutherford for the other outside wide receiver spot. If everything works out, gets on campus, he could be a guy that fits in that role. Again, are we at the point where we push the panic button and say that our wide receiver group is, we're in serious trouble? No, because you have to factor in the system that they're playing in. The system, like we mentioned earlier, is going to provide opportunities for these guys to be successful. The route trees, the design, everything, playing fast, not necessarily having a playbook, all those things, and the minds that are behind it, the scheme, everything that Mike Leach touches seems to turn into gold. All of his coaches, it's hard to find one that wasn't successful. So you have Graham Harrell, who, at Mike Leach's height, Graham Harrell was really his quarterback. When Texas Tech was its best under Leach, Graham Harrell was the quarterback. Well, he's the offensive coordinator. And then you have Seth Luttrell, who's had a chance to learn under Mike Leach and, under Larry Fedora at North Carolina, Kevin Wilson, Indiana. So he's had a chance to touch some of the brightest minds in college football as far as offense goes. So you have those guys designing a system, not really designing it, but taking the best parts of everything, combining it, putting it together, to create their own. And a lot of it probably won't be too different than what these other coaches. I think if I had to pinpoint one, it's going to fall closer to the Leach tree, which is fine. I mean, you look at the wide receivers that have come out of that system, they've put up tremendous, huge numbers, and they didn't necessarily have the skill sets that, a 5-star wide receiver would have. So we can work with what we have now on the roster. But a lot of these guys are going to have to reach their potential or go past their potential. And I think the system will help that. I think the coaching is better than what it was in the past. And that will help these guys be more successful as well, too. So I don't think we're at a panic stage. I think we're just kind of at a wait and see. Something's going to happen in the fall camp. These guys, one of them may emerge that, we haven't talked about. Or maybe somebody like O'Kurian Rutherford emerges, to become more of an impact player than, we've thought about. You can never really accurately predict, the development of players. We can project stats, but it's so tough when you're switching into a different system. And you don't necessarily know how Luttrell and Graham Harrell, how are they going to call plays, because for Graham Harrell, it's his first time calling plays. For Seth Luttrell, it's the first time being a head coach. So it's kind of that part of the projection is kind of hard. But I think, like I said, we're not at the panic mode yet. I think we're just kind of at the wait and see and hope that the system helps bring these wide receivers to a level that's greater than, we're imagining right now. So I hope that, I hope that they're able to calm the fears of a lot of, Mean Green Nation fans out there. So that was today's topic, was just talking about wide receivers. We'll probably be back on Monday or Tuesday to, hit you guys back with another, topic that comes